Hello, everyone. Welcome to our evening presentation. We are the, oh my gosh, am I spacing it? We are the Wellness and Recovery series, and I'm the trainer with RX Safe Del Norte. My name is Malaya Florendo, and I just want to thank you all for joining us today, whether it be Zoom or Facebook Live. Um, I have been saying Wellness and Recovery series for a whole month, and I just now forgot how to say it. So that's how it's going. But no, it's been a wonderful day of amazing presentations, and I want to thank everyone for joining us for them. And normally we don't do evening presentations, but hey, we're open to it, and we're going to have an awesome informative presentation on the opioid epidemic. There is hope for treatment from Dr. Katrina Groves. So we're very excited to have her today as our presenter. And I'm going to ask Katrina if you'd like to introduce yourself.
Hey, so is this working?
You look great. It's perfect.
All right, so I am at my home here in Oregon. Most of you know I've worked in Norte Community Health Center for 28 years and moved up here to take care of my dad, but I still have really amazing ties back home, and I miss everybody there. And so I really wanted to take advantage of this opportunity to just talk about the opioid epidemic and treatment and how everything all works. So I'm hoping that you guys will be interested and ask questions. I'm obviously not a professional speaker. I'm just a family doc. So go ahead and ask questions on the chat and during my presentation if you have questions, and then I'll have time at the end as well.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us today. And like she said, we do have the chats open both on Facebook Live and Zoom. So during this presentation, if you do have any questions, you can ask questions in the chat. We have people monitoring. And there is about a 45-second delay on Facebook. So if we don't get to your question right away, it just takes a minute and we will get to it as soon as we can. And again, just thank you everyone for joining us today. As always, we like to go through a couple of housekeeping slides before we get started. As always, we have our group agreements. Please remember, respect and kindness are key, and if you're not being respectful and it becomes a persistent issue, you will be removed. Please show tolerance and sensitivity for differences. Participants in the group come from different cultural, racial, gender, and sexually oriented backgrounds, so please be aware and sensitive to judgmental comments. And please use positive language. Stay away from using any racial, homophobic, or degrading remarks. This is a safe space and it is free of judgment. So it's all right to disagree with someone else's point of view, but we don't put each other down for it. And this is a space where participants should feel comfortable to be themselves, share their thoughts and ideas without any worry of punishment or judgment. If you are sharing stories today, whether it be on the Zoom or on the chat on Facebook Live, please try and leave out any personal information of others you might be talking about, because sometimes using names aids in the spread of rumors and detracts from the point of information trying to be communicated. So out of respect of others, we ask, please try and be careful of using people's names and personal information in your stories. Thank you. And as always, if you have questions, ask for clarification. Again, we have the questions open in the chat, so both on Facebook Live and Zoom. If you don't have any, or if you don't understand the information being provided and you would like to know more or get some clarification, ask those questions. Feel free. Awesome. Well, thank you, everyone. You've all been wonderful at following our group agreements this whole month, and we appreciate it. As always, in some of these conversations, there may be some heavy topics brought up. So if you're feeling some heavy emotions, feelings, or concerns, and you feel like you might need to reach out to someone, we encourage it. So we've provided a couple numbers, such as the mental health hotline for Del Norte and some of the 24-hour crisis services that are available. So again, if some emotions or feelings may come up from some of the heavy conversations that we have here on the Wellness and Recovery series, feel free to reach out. We want to make sure you're taking care of yourselves as well. As far as informed consent and privacy, each person's participation in this presentation is voluntary. So please respect the privacy of others and do not share personal information with anyone else. This training is being recorded and is live on social media. So if you are participating via Zoom, please turn your video camera off and stay muted. And we always love to start off our workshops with our land acknowledgement. So I would like to acknowledge that I am coming from Talowa Dene land, and if we understand, like, you may be meeting from other areas other than, you know, our presenters and our hosts. So we'd like to recognize some of the tribes in our local area, such as the Talowa Dene, the Yurok, the Karuk, Hupa, Wiyot, and many rancherias such as Elk Valley, Resagini, Big Lagoon, Trinidad, Blue Lake, Table Bluff, and Bronerville. We understand that not everyone's coming from these areas, so make sure if you don't know to look into it and recognize the land that you are on today. We honor the Indigenous peoples who lived together and cared for this land and each other since time immemorial. We honor with gratitude the land itself and the people who have been the stewards of this land for generations. We know the effects of colonization have impacted Indigenous people disproportionately, and we hope that through this series we can learn together to help heal and work towards a healthy future. So again, thank you everyone for joining us today, and thank you for acknowledging the land that you're on today. And we'll go ahead and get into our wonderful presentation with Dr. Groves. So if you would like to take it away, Dr. Groves.
Sure,
you may share your screen.
All right, let's see if I can get my slides to work here. Share screen. So actually your introduction was interesting because some people may not know that I'm Karuk Indian myself. Not very much, but pretty proud of it. And it's probably one of the reasons I became interested in addiction, because my mother and how she was judged in the past for being Native American. So it's a little bit related to how people who are addicts are often judged. And my hope and goal today is to try to decrease some of the stigma. And here's my credentials. I'm board certified in family medicine and addiction medicine, and no financial gains for this talk. So one of my patients actually said this, you know, nobody wants to be an addict. Nobody starts out as a kid saying, oh my gosh, you know, I really want to be on the street. I want to be homeless. I want to be shooting drugs. It's something that is no one's fault. It's something that happens. It's genetic. And I just want people to be aware.
Katrina?
Yeah.
You may want to reshare because it's showing your slides in a weird way.
In what way is that?
I can see your notes and there's some sort of timer countdown.
Okay. So much for that.
Can try again.
Those are my notes. All right. Oops. Are you still seeing it?
No.
Okay. Do you see the slide with the addict?
No, you have to share screen again.
Okay, hang on.
Everyone hang on, just slight technical difficulties. We're fine.
Always. Well, now I don't get my notes, so you guys are going to have to hear me wing it. Okay, how about that?
I think you can do it.
Is that?
Yeah, that's great.
Okay, thank you for letting me know. All right, so no one wants to be an addict. So my goals of tonight, I mean, this looks pretty big, but we're going to hit on all these topics, talk about the opioid epidemic, talk about the definitions of opioid use disorder, try to destigmatize the brain disease of addiction, talk about various medications, including Suboxone, that we use for treatment of addiction. We're going to talk about MAT programs, which is the new word for Suboxone programs. I'm hopefully going to raise awareness and help people get access to treatment. And then there was some interest in the community about talking about pregnancy and MAT treatment as well. And I'll talk a little about that. I am not an OBGYN doctor, but I've taken care of quite a few pregnant women with Suboxone. And of course, the main goal is to work together to decrease opioid prescriptions and hopefully improve the lives and health of people in our communities. Slide, whoops. All right, so unless you've been living under a rock, you know that this was statistics from 2018, nearly 47,000 Americans died from opioid overdose. And this is including heroin and prescription opioids as well. And if you think about it, 184 drug overdose deaths every day in the United States. In 2016, there were 42,000 plus deaths from opioid overdoses, and this was more than the number of car accidents. And you can see from 2016 to 2018, increased by about 5,000 people. And so these are big numbers. And sometimes to me, you know, I'm a family physician, so I do things one person at a time. When it hits home, it's someone that you know, someone in your neighborhood. This is our community. And unfortunately, during my time at the clinic, there were quite a few deaths from opioid overdose that impacted us and our group quite a bit. So definition, opioid use disorder is a loss of control of opioid use and risky opioid use, doing things that you normally wouldn't do that put you in situations that are high risk. It impairs social functioning, people become tolerant and withdrawal. But it's interesting that the old definition in medicine was that tolerance and withdrawal was thought to be, oh, you're an addict because you go into withdrawals. But that's not the definition. Anybody who has ever, for example, if you had a broken leg and your doctor put you on Norco, and then suddenly your doctor just said, that's it, you can't have any more, cut you off, you would go into withdrawals. That doesn't mean you're an addict. It means that our brains are used to it and we have to be tapered down. Of course, that's a generalization. Some people stop completely and have no problems, but it's not the definition of addiction. So here's my busy slide on addiction, which has been redefined over the years. And we do know now that it actually is a brain disease. It's an inability to stop using opioids, even though your life is falling apart. It's a chronic disease. Cravings, compulsive use causes very serious physical, mental, employment problems, legal problems, family problems. We'll get into that. People lose control over their behaviors and their emotions. And it's often very common. People don't recognize they have a problem. So it often takes family members to be alert and friends. And they can point out to somebody, hey, you know, this isn't like you. Maybe you can get into treatment. And really important, chronic disease, addiction is like diabetes, and it involves cycles of relapse and remission. It is a disease, and I think if we, as doctors, nurses, healthcare providers, people, human beings, if we thought of addiction more like a disease like diabetes, we wouldn't have the judgment as much. All right, so let me go on. Oh, here's a little brief video, if you don't mind. I got off the CDC.
Prescription opioids are a type of drug used to manage pain. They include OxyContin, Vicodin, and morphine, among others. Some people might think prescription opioids are safer than alcohol or illegal drugs, but the truth is they carry serious risks and side effects. In fact, anyone can become addicted to prescription opioids, even when prescribed by a doctor. Abusing or misusing opioids can result in loss of control. It can affect your ability to keep a job and maintain healthy relationships. It can even lead to overdose and death. Prescription opioids can have a number of side effects, even when taken as directed. Some of those include physical dependence, increased sensitivity to pain, constipation, nausea, confusion, and depression. You can make informed decisions about your pain management. Talk to your doctor about non-opioid options like ibuprofen or acetaminophen, antidepressants, exercise, and other therapies. If your doctor prescribes opioids, ask how long you'll need to take the medicine and how you'll know when it's time to stop. Take only the amount prescribed. Talk to your doctor about all of your medications. It's very dangerous to combine opioids with certain other drugs. Talk to your doctor about all of your concerns. Follow-up is important. To learn more, go to cdc.gov/drug overdose.
So any questions so far?
None yet.
All right. So I get a lot of questions about this. So I'll ask my own question. Why doesn't everyone become addicted? So narcotics can be taken safely by many people, some people. If they're prescribed for a good reason, for a short amount of time, you broke a leg, as I said, you had a root canal, you had surgery. So sometimes we need to take opioids. They're helpful. They're a part of our armamentarium. But as doctors and other healthcare providers, when I say doctor, I mean physician assistants, nurse practitioners, anybody who's prescribing, we don't necessarily know if a person we're giving these medications to is genetically predisposed to become an addict. And there actually is research to show, of course, in mice here, that people are genetically predisposed to addiction. So this is my little picture of the Lewis rat experiments. I'm just going to describe this for you. There were two groups of rats. One was Dr. Lewis's group, and the one group of rats, they were actually hooked up to little electrodes, and they set up like sort of a button that they could push, and anytime they pushed the button or the lever, they would get a little kind of pleasure sensation hooked up to their brain, the amygdala, which is the part of our brains that are dealing with pleasure, the limbic system. So anytime the rat would press a little lever, they'd get like a pleasurable sensation. Well, this one group of rats, the normal, quote, normal group of rats, or the non-addict rats, could just press the button once in a while and then go on and live their normal lives, The other group, of course, you see where I'm going with this, is they completely did not want to do anything else except sit there and push that button, that lever over and over again. They stopped eating. They stopped drinking liquids. They stopped making rat babies. So basically their whole line died out. And of course, oh, sorry, I'm going to go back. So of course we are not rats. Human beings have another bigger brain, and we have the ability to choose, not just respond instinctively, but a lot of this is genetic predisposition, that some people do have that. So when a doctor prescribes something, a pain medication to a patient, and they happen to have this kind of genetics, they're hooked. I mean, I've seen it happen before. People come and tell me, oh, Dr. Groves, it started when my doctor gave me Norco for my back, and then, oh my gosh, that was the best thing since sliced bread. I couldn't do without it. And then they started getting more and more off the street. And pretty soon, they're addicted. So we don't know when we are going to encounter a person like that. I hope someday we have genetic testing or something that can let us know this. That would be important. Okay, so this can be a little scary for some people. Didn't realize this is going to be recorded, but it shouldn't be too terrible. Physical signs of drug use for people that do inject drugs, abscesses, people that snort drugs, they can get holes in their septum. You can see the dilated pupils. Oh, I'm going to try my little pointer here. See, this pupil's real small, this one's big. So when you're in withdrawals and you haven't had narcotics, your pupils can get very dilated. And when you take too many, your pupils are pinpoint like this. And that can be a sign of overdose. And here are the actual signs of opioid intoxication. Right here, people are conscious. This is intoxication, this is overdose. So people are conscious, but they're kind of sedated, they're drowsy, their speech is slurred, they're nodding off or dozing. In some groups that we used to have, we made it really clear, you know, don't be nodding off in groups because that makes people think that you're using, you know, oh, I had a tired night last night. Okay, well, drink some caffeine. There's memory impairment, there's mood, it can become euphoric, and then the pupils are tiny. And then an overdose, you're going to be unconscious, your pupils will be pinpoint, you'll have shallow respirations, pulse rates drop really low, normal is 60 and above. So they're going to stop breathing, go into a coma, and pinpoint pupils. So what do? I know the Opioid Coalition has been really instrumental. Thank you in getting Narcan out. The public health department, any pharmacy can give you Narcan if you ask for it. And I believe pretty much covered by most insurances. And if you don't know how to use it, you can look it up and the pharmacist will tell you. And basically you can save a life. The trick with Narcan is many people don't understand that just giving one spray and leaving is not okay. You know, Narcan works for a very short amount of time. You need to call 911 and stay with the person and wait. If they go out again, you're going to give it to them again. Sometimes 8, 9, 10 Narcans are needed to get somebody to a supportive situation where they can have a respirator and save their life. All right, so switching gears, there's 3 things that we need to live. There's food, water, and dopamine. And for those of you that don't know about dopamine, these are the happy chemicals in the brain, and this is where they sit. So dopamine, basically, like it says, allows you to wake up, get out of bed, feel like you're motivated to go to work, have good family connections, be happy, enjoy things. So the normal brain makes dopamine depending on your experiences. So like the perfect day ever, whatever that is for each one of you, 100 milligrams of dopamine. You win the lottery, you're on vacation in Hawaii, you're just, you know, it's the best perfect day ever is like 100. That's how many milligrams of dopamine you got in your system. The best meal ever is a 93. Best sex, 89. It's not quite as good. I know people aren't gonna like that one, but those are, you know, pretty good numbers to help people feel good. But look what happens when you take a drug outside of your body that wasn't meant to be taken by your body in these quantities or types. Methamphetamines gives you over 1,000 milligrams per deciliter of dopamine. Cocaine gives you 1,000, heroin 950, alcohol 875, cannabis 475, tobacco 375. So how can you compete with that? You know, once somebody has tasted or touched that level of dopamine, it's very hard to go back to feeling normal. So when people try to quit their opioids, their dopamine levels fall very low. They start looking for other things to try to fill that void. A lot of people end up switching addictions. Say you have an opioid addiction, suddenly you're going to want to smoke more cigarettes, or you're going to play video games, gambling, you're going to switch to caffeine, marijuana, alcohol. So it's the brain trying to recover some of that dopamine and trying to get that high again. I found this was a very appropriate picture. Drugs basically hijack your brain. So you can't feel those normal pleasures anymore because you've felt 1,000 and now you're going at 100. You know, that's not going to cut it. The reward center of your brain gets dulled and desensitized by the drug, so nothing else can compete. Food, family, friends, everything loses their value, and it takes second place behind the drug. And people lose ability to control their behaviors. They're a slave to the memories of getting high. Eventually, the drug doesn't even work anymore, but people are driven to keep seeking it anyway, because what else are they going to do? So again, you're going to hear me say this over and over again. It's not their fault. It's a brain disease. This I got from Dr. Corey Waller, who's amazing. If you ever have a chance to see his stuff on YouTube, he makes it very simple. But basically, if your craving for food is like a baseball size thing, like you're hungry, you're in a desert for a few days, you haven't, well, that's even too dramatic. I have a slide on that later, but say you just haven't eaten for like a day and you're starving. Well, that's about this much craving. And if you haven't had water for hours or days, you know, your craving is this big. But if you don't have enough dopamine, this is your craving. It's the size of the whole baseball field. So basically your dopamine gets so low after you use drugs, you can't get out of bed, you're depressed, you're not motivated. So seeking drugs becomes a survival for you every day. In some people, the nerve cells shrink down and they even die off, and sometimes they never grow back. So you're stuck in this world of no dopamine for the rest of your life. Here's my desert. So this guy is craving food and water, but that's nothing compared to not having dopamine. This is another example I use for my patients when I get them started on Suboxone. Here's your glass is full, you've got lots of energy, you've got good dopamine. Here's when you're using drugs. Basically drains you of everything. And here's an MRI for those clinical people that might be in the audience. The red is how much dopamine you have in your brain. So here's like the normal controls on the right or the left, sorry, that don't use drugs. And then people who use cocaine, alcohol, heroin, and pills, you can see that their dopamine levels really drop from the left to the right. When you're an addict, you have much less dopamine in your brain. And the good news is that you can get recovery. Some of the damage is reversible. So here's a normal. Here's somebody that used meth, for example, and after 2 years, their dopamine is coming back. So one of my favorite people says, don't quit until the miracle happens. All right, so that's kind of the nuts and bolts about addiction. And so how do we help people find treatment, get into treatment? What does treatment look like? So in Norte County, this was an old slide, but I couldn't find a newer one. We're up there, you know, we're not like Humboldt yet or over here, but we're in the orange. And we see it in our population. And so how do we get people into treatment? This kind of goes back to what Malia was saying at the beginning, that people need to feel safe. People need to feel not judged. A lot of times you go to your healthcare provider and you don't want to talk about your drug problem. My gosh, you know, you have anxiety, you feel shame, you don't trust the doctor or the provider, you think that your kids might get taken away. You know, there's lots of reasons why people don't want to disclose. And they think you're going to get my pain meds taken away from me. It's interesting that some people actually come and they say, please, I'm addicted to this. I can't get off of it. I need help. I don't want you to prescribe this anymore. Well, then you know you've been missing it for a while. So the attitude of the caregiver is so important. We need to work harder on this in the medical profession, I believe. People need to be approached in an honest, respectful way. You need to explain the addiction, offer help, Again, like Malia said at the beginning, personal biases, opinions about drug use, sexual behavior, lifestyle differences, all of that has to be set aside and or dealt with, therapeutically, not putting people in judgment. Because after all, they're coming to us for help. So these are some treatment options. Abstinence. Some people just say, hey, just quit the drug, go into treatment, detox. It's less than 10% effective. It just does not work. I mean, okay, it'll work. It'll get you off your drug. And then as soon as you get out of the situation, you're released from the four walls or your program. If you're not really active and in NA groups or AA groups or any kind of groups, if all you have is just the detox, most people relapse. Because remember, it's a brain disease. So that form of treatment has not been very successful, and that's why we have other things. So naloxone is the antagonist. You've seen me talk about Narcan. This is like antabuse for alcoholics. If you take naloxone, it doesn't let you get high. It blocks the opioid. But the problem with it is it doesn't help with cravings. So it's not very popular. Because people crave their narcotics, it does not take away that feeling. And then methadone was, of course, the first medication used for heroin addicts. And it's helpful. It was actually the first drug that they used for pregnancy. But this was basically the only thing we had. And of course, it's hard to get methadone. We don't have any methadone clinics in our area. You have to go in and get daily medications. There's a lot of stigma surrounding methadone as well. And some people have even been addicted to methadone, so they certainly don't want to be taking the same drug that they were addicted to as a form of treatment. So buprenorphine, along comes Suboxone, much newer medication, more safe, more effective, more widely used, and safe in pregnancy. Oh, sorry, this is a busy slide. So I think you can follow this if this is just an example of how the answer to the question of, well, isn't Suboxone, buprenorphine, isn't it just like another narcotic? Why my family members shouldn't be on that? They should just be cold turkey. They should, all these shoulds are judgmental, right? It's just another drug. Well, it's not. So here is methadone. It's what we call a full agonist. It hits your brain full force. It's an abused narcotic. And here is buprenorphine or Suboxone. So this is called a partial agonist. And basically that just means it goes into the same spot of the brain. I'm going to show you a picture of that later. But there's no ceiling. You don't get high off the buprenorphine. And the good thing is too, this is what causes overdose, the methadone. The buprenorphine is much, much, much harder to overdose. Unless you're a kid and you get a hold of it by accident and you then possibly overdose, but you have to work really, really hard to even try to get an overdose on buprenorphine. So very safe, very effective, not easily abused, and also better for baby. Neonatal abstinence syndrome is NAS, and I'm going to talk about that later. And here's naloxone at the bottom, the antagonist. So that one, of course, is the perfect drug. It just blocks all narcotics. But again, it's not very popular because people have such horrible cravings still when they're taking it. So Suboxone is very safe and helps people get off street drugs and into treatment. And it's interesting that Suboxone also helps with pain. So those of you out there who have problems with addiction or opiates, the Suboxone you can take for pain management if you don't want to go back to the opioids. Even if you haven't been an addict and you just don't want the side effects. Opioids have side effects. They cause constipation, they cause memory problems, they can cause emotional problems. Just even if you're not addicted to them, if you're just dependent on them, they change your personality. They have side effects like that video showed. So the good thing about Suboxone is it also helps with pain. So here are some examples of, this was an old Subutex. Bunavail is another brand. It goes into the cheek and dissolves. This is the one most people are used to. The film dissolves under the tongue. And then Zubsolv is another brand. It tastes maybe a little better, absorbs a little bit better. So there's multiple ways to take the Suboxone. And here's my slide. So this is your brain. And if I'm going too fast, let me know. Any questions? So our brain has receptors on it. So the people that have been in my group are going to know this slide by heart. Say you're predisposed to diabetes, it runs in your family. At any time, this gene can be turned on and you can get diabetes. Thyroid problems down here, depression down here. So this is the mu receptor, the top one on the right, and I shaped it like a Pac-Man for a reason, because when people are addicted, that receptor is saying, feed me, feed me, feed me, I need my drug. So say here's the heroin or the oxycodone or whatever the person is craving. Everyone has a mu receptor. Everyone does. Those Lewis rats have one. It's just that in people who are addicted, this is much larger. And hang on, I need to find my, no. Well, I did have a slide that filled this in, so I'll have to use my pointer. Take that out, technical difficulties. So how Suboxone works is, if you can imagine that this, I guess I can't change my slides at the time, can I, Philip?
No, I don't think so.
Okay. So if you can imagine that this little round opioid molecule is gone, and we replace it with, we fill up the mouth basically. Suboxone is shaped just like a little piece of the pie, and it fills up the mu receptor, and people don't have the cravings anymore. So that's how Suboxone works. It basically fills up this mouth, so to speak, and the opioid can't attach. So Suboxone is like a yin and a yang too. It's half of the molecule is to help the cravings, and the other half prevents you from getting high. So if, you know, people aren't perfect, people have relapses and slip ups. If you are on Suboxone and you try to shoot up heroin because your friend just comes, knocks on the door and says, hey, here, it won't work. The heroin won't make you feel high. You'll just have wasted money, and you didn't get a good feeling about it. And it can make even people feel sick. So that there's a yin and a yang to the Suboxone. It's an agonist antagonist, which is another reason it's not the same as methadone. It is not just another narcotic. Treatment works, yes. Oh my gosh. This is the reason I got so interested in recovery programs and helping treat people with addictions. I have seen and helped people get back their lives. They've gone from being homeless to getting a home, getting a job, getting their kids back. CPS graduates them, probation is gone. They get jobs, they become more productive. So then the community benefits, there's less crime. A lot of people I've found go on to help other people. You know, they teach, they become social workers, they go to juvenile hall, they're getting educated. It's amazing. And people are so different. You know, you are not who you act as when you're under the influence of drugs. And when you're clean and sober, and people are amazing. They're the real heroes, because it's hard work. So treatment, two components always. MAT is medication assisted treatment. So there's methadone, as we said, naltrexone, and of course I prefer the Suboxone or buprenorphine naloxone. Medication is one component. The second one is mental health. As the slide went up earlier, you need to have support for depression, anxiety. When people use drugs, they are blocking a lot of emotions. They are blocking mental health conditions because they don't, they're masking it with their drugs. So when people stop using drugs and get into recovery, they suddenly realize, wow, I didn't realize I was beaten as a kid and I was trying to hide that. And so I use drugs. And now the pain comes out, the realization comes out, the memories come out. People need support. They often need antidepressants or other medication. So it's very important. One without the other just is not as successful. So you could take Suboxone, but it won't help you necessarily stay in recovery without the mental health support and the meetings, groups. Bonding with some counselor or therapist, other people who are in treatment. That's the key. So again, people are ready for change at different times. This is, let me get my little pointer here. This is the pre-contemplation stage. And people like this, they're not interested at all in changing their behavior. They don't think they have a problem. Then sometimes people get into this. They're contemplating, they really realize they have a problem, but they're really not sure if they're ready to change. They really don't know if they want to give up what they're doing. And then something happens in here, sometimes an overdose, sometimes they're arrested, sometimes the kids get taken away. Some triggers people into just saying, okay, you know what, I need to address this problem. I'm gonna take a stance. Here's the action phase. They actually go to a clinic, they get treatment, they tell their doctor, they tell their family member, they say, hey, I need help, I want to get better. And then maintenance is sustain a change, that new behaviors replace the old behaviors. This takes a long time to stay in here. Sometimes, not always, there can be relapse. You fall into old patterns. We are human creatures, we're not perfect. But then again, I've seen people have a relapse and they realize, oh my gosh, I'm just going backwards. What am I doing? And they go right back. Usually they go from here back to here. They skip this step. They're like, here, I don't want to go down that word again. And the upward spiral, you learn from each relapse. And that's the point. If you're honest with your provider and your doctor or your counselor, you say, I screwed up. I made a mistake and I learned from it and I want to continue being in recovery. And it's really interesting because we used to think as doctors that if you're coerced into treatment, like drug court or probation, if you had to go to treatment, you were much less likely to be able to stay in recovery. Well, we find that's not true. No matter how you get into treatment, it can be very successful for you, whether it's voluntary or not. So the other question I get a lot is length of treatment. Some people are motivated to be tapered off Suboxone. They say, okay, I've done my year. They come into the program saying, I just want to do it for a little bit and then I want off. And that reminds me of that slide about detox. Yes, you can use Suboxone for detox, and yes, it will help, and we can taper it down. But unfortunately, a lot of times, too many people relapse because remember, it's a brain disease. And in that brain, you've got a memory of what it felt like to have all that dopamine. And, there are certainly people that can come off Suboxone and want to and are successful with it. But the majority of people do better if they just stay on a little tiny bit, and that's okay. And the last statement here is important, I think, because many people are judged for being on Suboxone. They feel like it's a cheat. It's, it's not really recovery. Yes, it is. It's recovery. Taking Suboxone, going to your meetings, doing your groups, walking the walk of recovery and taking Suboxone is keeping you off the streets. It's keeping you from shooting up heroin and It's giving you your life back. That is definitely recovery. And I think a lot of our medical providers and dare I say, local law enforcement needs to be aware of this. I think, well, enough said about that one. All right, so pregnancy. During my time at the Norte Community Health Center, I had the privilege of working with women who were pregnant. And at the very beginning, in 2008, it was very scary because Suboxone was new. A lot of OB doctors did not know about the drug, and they're very afraid of what's going to happen to these babies on people and moms who take Suboxone. So here's what I alluded to before. This is called neonatal abstinence syndrome, or NAS. And if you think about every 15 minutes, a baby is born suffering from opioid withdrawal. And that's 15.8 million women. It's 13% of ages 18 and over have used illicit drugs in the last year. That's old data, 2014. It's much higher now. So the odds are that someone out there is pregnant and using drugs. So neonatal abstinence syndrome is when moms are addicted to pills or heroin and they deliver. The babies go through withdrawals just like the adults, like we talked about. Babies just can't tell us how they feel. Moms don't want to tell their doctors because they're afraid of lots of different things. But now we know that moms don't have to be afraid. Babies don't get taken away. They want to keep babies and moms together. So the sooner you tell your doctor that you're pregnant, the sooner they can help you. So the symptoms of neonatal abstinence, it's really heartbreaking. You know, that the babies cry, unconsolable, irritable. They don't breastfeed well. They don't sleep. They get hyperactive. They're totally stressed. A lot of times they have to be sent to larger hospitals. I know at a local hospital, we've got to fly the babies out. They need IV fluids. They have to go to the ICU. And then in the past, the only treatment we could do was give the baby tinctures of morphine, which is a problem because yes, you're helping them through their withdrawals, but then you got to wean them down. It's like the baby starts out their life in withdrawals, which is hard. It's hard on babies, hard on moms. So the treatment, swaddle the babies tight, small frequent feedings, just keep an eye on baby and mom. The goal, of course, to get mom and baby to get through it and go home together. So if the mom is on Suboxone, and again, I've had experience where it's much better than heroin. If you take a pregnant woman and you get her onto Suboxone, she can stay on it during her whole pregnancy. Talk to their doctor. We have several people that they just wean slowly down as low as they can get, and that way baby doesn't have to have withdrawals, because yes, you will have a little bit of withdrawals with Suboxone too. It's not like as horrible as methadone withdrawals or heroin withdrawals, but you want to be on the lowest dose that you can be, so there's a better outcome for baby. And the studies do show shorter hospital stays, less neonatal abstinence syndrome, and moms on Suboxone should definitely breastfeed the baby. So here's the mother's study, New England Journal of Medicine's been, over 10 years now, and it did show the difference between methadone and buprenorphine, because initially, doctors are slow to make changes because it's scary and it's unknown, and we used methadone forever, but the research has shown us that Suboxone is safe and effective and so much better for baby as well as mom compared to methadone. So that is now, I believe, the gold standard. If any OBGYN doctors are out there listening and you have anything to add, be my guest. So here's a slide from the Norte Community Health Center where I used to work for 28 years. This is the MAT program, and our mission statement was this to provide a supportive, non-judgmental, therapeutic environment, helping people learn to enrich and improve their lives and realize their full potential without the use of addictive substances. And I am very proud to have been associated with that clinic, that group. And we had a lot of changes along the way. And it's still, even though I had to leave, it's still going on. So here's my shout out to Tony and Daria. I know we said don't name names, but hey, these guys are there for you. You call the clinic, get an appointment, or just talk to them. So again, medication's fine, but the real recovery is done in groups. And even though we're in pandemic and COVID, you know, there are tons of online resources. I actually have a list I didn't put in my slides, but Women for Sobriety is an online support. www.smartrecovery.org is another organization. NA and AA meetings are all online and virtual now. So don't think that, gee, I'm isolated, I can't do groups. Yes, you can do groups, and they're very effective. So my other question, since there's not any, I keep asking my own, is Suboxone just a crutch? Some people, like I said, they want to wean off, but they need to have a plan with your medical provider. You have to taper very gradually. It might take months or years. And there are people that want to just keep taking it because they're afraid of what they might do if that brain activates again. And just like your body, the brain tissue needs time to heal after injury. So Suboxone is like a crutch or a cast. You know, if you've had a lot of brain damage and injury because of long-term opioid use and addiction, you may need to continue to take Suboxone indefinitely. But you can usually take lower doses. And MAT programs work. I found it, like I said, people re-enter the community, they reintegrate with their lives. Maintenance treatment, this is kind of a summary slide. Maintenance treatment is needed for most patients. Detox by itself doesn't work. Helpful for chronic pain. Is it cost effective? Yeah. Reduced expenses, less crime, less use of the justice system, improved quality of life, lowers healthcare spending, greater income. And of course, success stories. Like I said, the real heroes of all of this are the patients themselves. You guys, anyone out there who you know, or maybe you have issues with opioid addiction, getting through this and doing the work is extremely inspirational. People overcome such huge obstacles, and I've been amazed at the power that people have to change their lives. So I have a slide here again, Calvin's story. So if you'll bear with me, it's only a minute.
My father was an alcoholic. It was just chaos all the time because of his drinking.
I don't think we can hear the sound.
Uh-oh.
I could be whoever you wanted.
There we go.
So Philip, how do we do the sound?
Turn up the sound on your computer if you can, please.
Was it just a delay?
And it got dark at the end.
Yeah, I think it's good now.
Oh, okay. I'm going to try and start it over.
My father was an alcoholic. It was just
How about
chaos
that?
all the time in our house
Perfect.
because of his drinking. I didn't want to be.
It keeps cutting out in the same spot. You might want to stop.
So the alcohol back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, until it didn't really matter anymore what I was doing.
What's wrong?
Stop, then unshare, and then reshare your screen using your computer audio.
Stop.
Videos do weird stuff sometimes. Yep, now
Share
share.
and then do what? Share using computer audio?
Yeah, turn up your audio, please.
Okay, hang on. Share. Whoa, I'm gonna blow myself out of the water. Okay, hang on. So tell me if you can hear this now.
My father was an alcoholic. It was just chaos all the time in our house
Much better.
because of his drinking. I didn't want to be my father, but I became my dad. I went from the alcohol to the drugs to the alcohol, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, until it didn't really matter anymore what I was doing. I could be whoever you wanted me to be to get whatever I needed. And it got dark at the end, and so I drank and used, and I wanted to die every day. I remember it was July 24th, and it was 100 degrees outside. It was going to be a meeting, but there was a bar that I used to drink at, so I had to make a decision which one I was going to go to. And I went to the meeting, and that's where my journey began, was that day. I never diagnosed myself being mentally ill. I was always taught, you know, come on, cut it out. Act like a man. Quit acting like that. But then I come to realize it's a disease. For years, I thought I could do this on my own. Get well, I couldn't. There's people out there that are willing to step up and to give you hope and to walk with you through this. I would be the first to tell you that I'll ask for help today. I do have a whole fellowship of guys that, you know, if something happens, I know who I can call. And they're always there. I talked to one this morning. I usually walk about 8 miles a day. It's just my way of just being able to be okay and be still within myself. I joined Atrium Health in 2010, and I became a peer support in 2016. Who would know better than a drug addict and an alcoholic to talk to another drug addict and another alcoholic? I can only give them my experience and what I've been through and share bits and pieces of my life. Say, you know what? I'll jump down in the hole with you, and we'll stop digging, but we'll be together through this as we climb out. I'm not who my diagnosis is, all right? And I don't live that life anymore. I do not let that define who I am as far as with my addiction or anything else. I'm a person in long-term recovery. I'm a father, I'm a grandfather today. My grandchildren never see me drunk or high. What I have inside is the most important thing, and that's my recovery, my sobriety.
So yeah, every time I watch that, I just get goosebumps because we have stories like that. I see the miracle happen all the time. Okay, sorry about the audio on that. So this was actually a business card that one of our clients made. Pretty artistic person, and it's cut off here, but it says, after receiving medication-assisted treatment for my opioid addiction, I realized I wasn't a bad person trying to be good, but a good person trying to get well. So of course I'm going to give my little shout out to my clinic, my previous clinic. And in closing, you know, for me, treating opioid addiction, it's challenging, but recovery changes people's lives, and it's progress, not perfection. And it's been the most rewarding part of my practice, hands down. So I wanted to say thank you. And of course, we're not done yet. We're going to take questions, but I want to thank the Opioid Coalition and all the people who made this possible, because we all help each other. And here's SAMHSA, if you guys want to take a photo of that or whatever and hand it out to people. It's the national helpline. And Smith River. Any questions, any chat, anything? Or have I been talking to myself the whole time?
No, wonderful, very informative workshop, and I really appreciate that, because I think it's important, but you like summed it up so well. So I just want to thank you for that. We did have a question. What is it that motivates you to do this work?
What I just saw, I mean, this is, as a doctor, this is the hugest impact I've seen that I can make and help people in their lives. I mean, I have delivered babies, and you know, that's okay. And I treat diabetes and high blood pressure, but there's nothing that's touched my heart so much, just to help these people walk through this recovery and make these huge changes. It's just so rewarding to be a part of that and to go through their pain and suffering and come out the other side and just share in their joy again. That's what motivates me.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. And the next question we had was, what is your hope for the future?
Keep hope. There's always hope. My hope would be that the planet, that we all help each other as human beings, not as certain races or religions or colors or diseases, people with addictions, people with disabilities, everything. For me, the future, that's a pretty broad question, but the future for me is where, we help each other on the planet, that we learn to be human beings and help each other. And that's kind of my mission and my hope.
Wonderful. Well, kind of going in on hope and the similar theme, what do you recommend for families of those suffering from addiction on how to help?
Yeah, good question. So families are often impacted by this really hard, even more so maybe than the person who's addicted, because they're kind of blindsided. One of my slides showed that person just going after the drug. That's all they see because they have to, and they feel like they have no choice. But the family is left behind to pick up the mess. And I guess one thing I didn't say is that some people, when they take Suboxone, they're breaking the cycle of addiction within the family. So their brothers, their sisters, their aunts, their uncles, so many people, they're off on their addiction. And there's that one person in the family can get out of that vicious cycle. They can be an example and help the nucleus family. So, if you're a sister or a brother or a friend, as a family, talk to your loved one as non-judgmentally as you can. That's the key is say, hey, I noticed that you're sick, you're feeling sick all the time, or hey, can I help? And of course you're going to get hit with, remember, the cycle of change. Not everybody is ready, but all you need is that little once in a while. If you put that out there to them, they will know that they can grab onto that when they're ready. So just keep giving them love, unconditional support. It might be tough love sometimes. You might actually have to not give your family member money. You might actually have to kick them out of your house. They might need to be homeless for a while. The consequences of that, then you're not enabling the person. You're kind of showing them that they have to live this is how it is with an addiction, and maybe that will be enough to get them in treatment. Maybe going to jail gets them in treatment. Maybe being homeless for a while will get them in treatment. So if people as families enable their loved ones too much, it's a fine line. So I hope that answers that question.
Definitely. Thank you. And I just, I do want to highlight Phil in the chat saying just thank you for this presentation. Definitely mirroring that. And he just wants to thank you for the amazing impact you've had on his life and, the community in general. So.
Thank you.
And yeah, I want to say thank you so much for presenting today and wonderful presentation. And I just want to leave it open. Do you have any other, last words you want to leave people with? Any advice or everyone?
My last slide. There's my last slide. So this is why somebody asked about motivation. I have seen people just bloom and blossom into the most lovely, wonderful human beings. And so the message is there's always hope, and reach out. There's somebody there to help you. And we just don't ever give up. Human beings are so amazingly resilient, and there's someone there to help you. And thanks so much for for doing this presentation. I'm feeling back in the home of Del Norte County.
That's
I
wonderful.
miss you all.
We really appreciate you coming on and presenting today, Dr.
Sure,
Groves.
anytime.
You're wonderful. Is there any way people can reach out to you if they wanted to, or do you have recommendations of places for them to reach out? I know you gave us a few, but.
Yeah, well, right now, like I said, I'm living in Oregon, so not gonna happen till I come back one of these days. I still hope to do so. But no, the Del Norte Community Health Center, of course, is a great place to reach out. And there are other places and communities. You might have some ideas on your own, what's available there. Humboldt has a similar, Humboldt Open Door Community Health Center is also in Fortuna, Eureka. So, and I do believe they're even taking some Brookings patients, but yeah, reach out.
Definitely. Thank you so much. And for those, looking for the contact for the community health clinic here in Del Norte, we can definitely put that information on the Wellness and Recovery page, and as well as the Humboldt one if you would like to reach out there. So again, I just want to say thank you, Dr. Groves, for presenting today. Wonderful presentation. You did an amazing job. And thank you to all of those who are viewing. We appreciated having you today. Do you mind, or here we go. All right, before we go off, I do, as always, love to leave us all with some more information on the Wellness and Recovery series. We are on our last week, and it is very sad, but we're very happy for all the wonderful work that has been put into it. Our presenters, just as Dr. Grove, we've had some amazing presenters this past month, and we appreciate all of the hard work that they've put in, as well as all of the hard work you as viewers have put in. And thank you to our planning team who's been doing amazing. So we still have a week, 2 more days. We are on the last week, and we will still be having live presentations Wednesday and Thursday until July 30th. We will have some, interactive activities as well as some more presentations. So make sure that you stay updated, and you can register through Eventbrite still to stay updated on what's going to be happening this week. You can also, if you want to get your Wellness and Recovery Series t-shirt, you can still register through Eventbrite and get that information plugged in so we can get your t-shirt and swag bag sent to you. So again, to stay updated on our upcoming presentations for the week, which will be through Zoom and Facebook Live, you can follow our Facebook page at the Wellness and Recovery Series, as well as register on Eventbrite. The Wellness Art Challenge is still going on. The deadline was yesterday, but we're still taking submissions. So if you want to throw in a last-minute submission, you can download the PDF at the Wellness and Recovery Facebook page or the Eventbrite. What you're going to do is draw in the middle what your wellness activity is. And this could be anything. It could be any medium, the sky's the limit, and anything that you do to keep your mind, body, and spirit healthy. You can take a picture, scan it, or upload it on social media and use the hashtags HealthyDelNorte and Wellness Challenge, or email it directly to us at rxsafedelnorte@gmail.com. You will want to include the artist's name, of course, and the age group. Each age group is eligible for some awesome prizes in our raffle, so make sure you do the activity and get your submissions in for a raffle entry. We are not judging on talent, by the way. We just want everyone to be able to express what their wellness activity is. And again, last week, and we just finished up our Tuesday for the last week, and tomorrow is Wednesday, Wellness Wednesday, and we'll be starting off the morning with a wonderful presentation by Boyd Ferris, which is being hosted by the UROC Health and Human Services. So make sure you join in on that. It is an amazing presentation that's going to be happening. And in the afternoon, at 2 o'clock, we'll be having a little bit of movement and dance, and I think some breathing and maybe Pilates with 7 kids. So make sure you join in on some fun activities for Wellness Wednesday. We usually do some great wellness activities and help you, find some alternatives to that pain. And on Thursday, we'll be finishing it off with the morning session being our Yurok Tribe Wellness Coalition is going to be hosting their Net Tender Narcan training. So if you or someone you know has not received naloxone or Narcan, then you can join in and get your certification, get your Narcan, and an incentive. So recommend it to others, do it yourself. It's a pretty simple, fun, interactive training, and it's great. They do amazing work over there at the Yurok Tribe Wellness Coalition. So join in on that in the morning. And at 3 o'clock, not 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, we'll be having our closeout event. And we'll just be doing our raffle. We'll have a little bit of discussion about what's going to be happening in the future with our coalitions around here in Del Norte and Humboldt. And yeah, we'll just be saying goodbye for now and thanking everyone who's been an amazing part of this wonderful month. So make sure you join in on our last week. And again, thank you to our presenter today, Dr. Groves. Wonderful presentation. Thank you to all of those who watched. Thank you to all those supported and did tech and monitoring today. And if you, again, want to learn more about the series, follow our Facebook page. And if you want to know more about RX Safe Del Norte, you can check out our website and our Facebook page. As always, there is an evaluation form at the end of this workshop. Make sure you fill it out because it is an entry into our wellness raffle, which will be announced on Thursday. So make sure you fill out these eval forms every time you watch one of these workshops and you'll get an entry, and it really helps us out. So again, thank you to our presenter, thank you to our viewers, and we appreciate having you today. And we'll see you soon. Have a good evening.